like Legacy, right?
Okay.
You actually, like, have to be able to be prepared for so much. And if you make a small mistake, it can cascade into this terrible position where you just get locked up by your opponents.
It's really interesting. So it looks like we don't have Patrick Sullivan this round, maybe another point. But we do have a recent champion. I'm Gavin Verhey here with Adrian Sullivan, bringing you live coverage from the Star City Games Invitational here in Indianapolis. On your left, Chris Kronenberger recently just won an Open Series with his mono blue deck, almost certainly playing it again. Yep, playing his mono blue deck, trademark. On the other hand, Brad Stryczek looks to be packing the islands too.
Yeah, Brad is a Midwest player. Recently knocked me in the last round out of the top 8 for PTQ.
So, I see Standstill. So it looks like Brad's maybe playing the Landstill deck, and Chris is playing his mono blue deck.
Yep.
That seems likely.
Sounds likely.
Now, Chris is the one that played with the Energy Field deck.
Yep.
And uses Energy Fields, used Back to Basics to good effect.
Now, he's casting this mental misstep here for life. Perhaps playing around Spell Pierce?
Yeah. I mean, he knows he's against mono blue, right? So the 2 life isn't likely to be relevant in this game until it's at a point where like he's going to lose anyway.
Well, it depends, though. It depends on if Brad knows what Chris's history is, because those fetch lands could actually indicate, you know, maybe a bug deck of some kind.
Sure. I mean,
Sensei's Divine Top is not common there, but Top Bob exists.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just by the point we're here, like in the Invitational, he probably knows what Chris is doing. Both players are pretty good, so they probably have an idea of their past history, especially with Chris like going land nothing, you know,
Right.
Seems likely to me that
That's fair. That's
Brad knows
absolutely
what's
fair.
going on. But in the meantime, Brad brainstorms of his own. That could also be a reason why, so he could brainstorm and still pay for, you know, if
days.
Chris put days in his deck. Yeah. So that top resolve sticks for Kronenberger. And Brad chooses to crack his Pluto Delta, shuffling away the cards he brainstormed away. Getting a Tundra, and that should show to Chris that he is playing the Landstill deck.
Well, at the very least, he's playing perhaps Blade, because like
sure.
I said, a lot of those blue-white decks, they've stopped running the standstills.
Yeah.
Brad is.
He's got the Mystic up front of his hand there.
Alan Long, if you're in the room,
See if he goes for the Mystic.
This is a good time to go for it.
Yeah, I would go for it now.
Wow. What is he holding back with? He's got Force of Will, Standstill, Mystic. I think I saw a land.
I mean, maybe he's playing around Spell Pierce, I don't know.
Well, Mystic can't be pierced, so...
Yeah, I mean...
Playing around...
I mean, it gets countered, he counters back and then it gets Spell Pierce, but...
That Sensei's Divining Top, it's not going to grant Chris card advantage, but the card quality it can grant can really push things forward.
Alright, let's see. So she goes for the top. Good old top. He says top 3 cards.
I think I saw a Shackles, but I could be wrong. A Misty Rainforest in play for Chris Kronenberger.
Yep. Full set of fetch lands, or at least 6, if not 8 fetch lands. Works well with Brainstorm and Sensei's Divining Top, despite being a completely mono blue deck, just islands and fetch lands.
Brad finds a land.
There's V-Click.
Casts a Vendilion Click. Sensei's Divining Top is activated to find a card.
And so he finds the card he wants. We'll see what it is.
It's really interesting, actually.
Well, it must be a pretty important card because that top had to fight counter battle to get it down the first time. Getting it down the second time might fight another battle.
Tosses a Force of Will at the click.
Ships Echoing Truth.
Okay. Oh, an important card in your hand, huh? Says Brad.
You know, it's just also a 3/1 threat. Alright, so Brad,
Force of Will again.
Brad forces back.
And Brainstorm in response from Chris Kronenberger. And that there is a Shackles in Chris's hand. As he's still resolving this Brainstorm, looking to put cards back. I can't see what he's pushing back, but...
I mean, Brainstorm, once again, every decision is so big. You brainstorm wrong, and it can be the whole game. So, alright, let's resolve.
Top snare island. That means the Shackles is in the top 2 cards of Chris's library.
Interesting, he left the top in his hand. Does that mean there's another top?
I don't think there was.
I don't think there was either. That card just seems so important. The other 2 cards must be pretty crucial then.
I think Vidalcan Shackles is absolutely huge in this matchup.
I agree.
I mean, it basically shuts down so much. And Brad's like, well, if you didn't want to protect the Sensei's top, I'll let you keep it. Brad untaps. Has a 4th land in hand. And he could actually, this is a great position to lay the standstill in.
Yeah, I mean, he's under Vidalian Click. This is exactly the time you want standstill.
I don't mind him doing that first either. That's even better if that resolves. Then, he saw his opponent's hand. Plus that top card is something, exciting. So here he can go get a Battered Skull and then cast a standstill.
Yeah. Wow. Oh.
Sword works too.
Sure, sword. That makes sense. I mean, Protector for blue is pretty good against a mono blue deck.
Yep.
It could still be Shackles, notably, but...
And down comes the standstill, or are you going to wait on that for some reason?
You gotta play this.
There, come on. There we go. There we go.
Right. Yep, and standstill comes out to play.
Chris is going to be forced to give Brad those cards.
Yep, 3 cards for 2 mana, pretty good bargain.
Shackles now.
Brad gets to pick up 3 cards and see what he finds.
Uno, dos, tres. And a Daze. Daze will keep Chris from being able to use the Shackles immediately.
Right. So Brad will be able to get in with the sword, likely.
Much like we talked about how the Vidalcan Setarch is good against equipment and standard, Vidalcan Shackles has a very similar effect against equipment.
Sure. Little different card, but yeah.
But the same,
same idea, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. You can steal their guy that equipment is on, assuming that you have the enough islands to take it. And so Chris pays 1. That means Brad is going to take 5 on his turn, Chris can take 5 on Brad's turn, and Brad is going to get get a wolf on top of that. Pretty good position for Brad Stryczek. Now, when that Shackles gets active, it might be a problem, but
I think it's going to be a huge problem. Like, think about what Brad's options are once that's happened.
Yeah.
He's going to have to. He's only got what, 3 mana?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a 4th land in his hand.
Yeah.
Let's see. Alright, so I don't know what's in Brad's hand, but I can't imagine he didn't do anything else but put that sword down this turn. Unless he's got a way to directly deal with that Shackles. Yeah, so activate, down comes sword.
Sword.
Hit.
In for 5.
Drops
knock
Chris.
you down to 6.
Drops Chris to crucial 6 and mills him for 10 cards.
Another Shackles goes away. 2, 3, 4, 5. 6,
Echoing Truth, Equip,
7, 8,
Jace,
9, DS.
and Cryptic Command.
Wow, Cryptic Command. That's exciting.
Yeah, he had 2 in his list that he won in Louisville with. So it looks like he still has them for this week. He said that 2 was the right number when I talked to him in Louisville. That he wouldn't want more, but he wouldn't want less. It's good sometimes. Alright, so Chris untaps.
Activates the top string upkeep, trying to make his draw as powerful as possible.
Probably finding another lane.
Draws. Island number 6.
Let's see.
Now, what profitable attack can Brad make?
Well,
the best he can do here is he changes his equipment off of the Vidalcan, off of the Vendilion Click.
right.
And then the Vendilion Click or the equipped creature is the thing that can do the work. But if he leaves that sword on there when he declares the attack, that's actually really good for Chris.
Right, so he ships it probably to the wolf, right? Goes to combat, and Chris, if he takes the wolf, then he can still get in with the V-click. Okay, you can put that on Stoneforge. Now you probably take the Z click here, I guess. I'm surprised.
No, you take the wolf. Take the wolf, block, take 3.
But the V click's going to deal 3 damage. I mean,
or you take that guy,
yeah, sure,
like,
right. But the V click still gets in for 3.
Yeah, the V click's getting in for 3, whatever you do.
Right.
Or if you do take the V click, then you're taking another wolf from Brad. Brad will get another wolf. And here comes a follow-up, perhaps another mystic, or re-equipping the sword onto something. There we go, onto the wolf. End of the turn, I expect we're going to see a Sensei's Divining Top activation from Chris. Chris looking for some answer to that Vendilion click. He does not have very much time to get it. Untap.
Yeah. A Vendilion click of his own would be pretty good.
Yes. Thinking about untapping the shackles, perhaps?
Let's see. No, he just draws. Alright. Oh, alright, he draws.
Island. Is that a Jace?
Oh, Jace. Alright.
That's good.
Brainstorm, dig a little deeper, I guess. But he already knows his top 2 cards. Okay,
Brainstorm in response.
Interesting.
Here's what he can do, right? It's not exciting to bounce the Vendilion
Yeah, I
click.
was going to say, you have to bounce the V-click, right? Otherwise you're... Because Brainstorming has no guarantees, so you bounce the Vendilion click, clock Stoneforge Mystic on Wolf Token. Yeah. Not an exciting play, but one that...
But you gotta do sometimes.
Chris has to make. Yeah, bouncing the Vendilion click is certainly not a good feeling.
Is that a Mishras?
Yeah,
That's an amazing pull right now for Brad.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
And a standstill, which is actually pretty awesome if he main phases the... Oh, what's this? 4 mana.
Is that a Mind Sculptor?
Probably has one in his hand.
Well, let's see what Brad has.
It looks pretty glum for somebody that has his opponent on the ropes.
Well, it's part of the good posture, I guess.
Pairings for the Standard Open are now being posted. Pairings for round 6
Alright, so there's Jace.
are now being posted.
Aiming trade with his
Those
opponent's
feature
six.
matches for
Cracks
round 6
top.
are table 13.
Draws counter.
Wow.
Putzalon and Donald Nolan.
Well done by
at
Chris
the Europe
Kronenberger.
table. And
Jace
table
dies.
26, Kenta Kuroki.
Which means the click can't actually come down, and he's already laid land.
Table. Once again,
Wow,
at
yeah.
table 13 at the Garrett table and table 26
I mean, I guess
at the
you
Liliana
serve
table.
with your guy, force him block with his Mystic.
No, you don't do that. Because then he gets to untap his shackles and steal your guy.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's right. You want to keep your Mistress Factory up and available along with your sword. So they're under standstill right now. So he ships back the Stoneforge Mystic.
He's thinking about it. Yep.
Alright, so bounces the Mystic. Okay. So now Chris is in pretty good position, right? Because he can just steal a creature. I don't know if I like that standstill.
That standstill was a terrible play there for Brad.
He's looking at 2 Mistress Factories in his hand, though, which is pretty nice.
A second Mistress Factory is... Oh my god.
He has another one after that. He's got 3 Mistress
Devastating.
Factories. That's actually
Well,
just...
if he had those in his hand, then it's a good play.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he had these Mistress Factories hanging back.
If he has 3 factories, then yeah, that's insane. That actually is just lethal on Chris, given enough time. Now, granted, Chris can start brainstorming.
Chris can do this too. He can steal. Oh wait, if he attacks with the creature, the sword is still Brad's.
Correct.
And Brad gets the wolf.
Brad gets the wolf, right? And let's see. So he animates his Mistress Factory, ships the sword back to the factory, and now he's it's got pro green,
just after this main phase.
so he can just serve in, right?
Yes.
Because
Which means
All right,
that
the
Chris,
wolf is green.
Which means that Chris, if this is Unless this is happening post-combat, which it should be. Okay, yeah, post-combat.
No.
Okay. I guess there must have been some confusion there or something. Weird.
Give back the wolf. There you go.
It's surtarking that
Yeah.
that equipment.
Super Surtark.
Yeah, super surtark. Does a lot more than Vidalcan surtark could ever hope to. Alright, bounces the wolf. The wolf is gone. Chris plays a land. And Jace is gone now. And so
Brad's gonna do a lot of work here with this third Mishra's factory.
Yeah, that third factory is the crucial factory. Actually, you know what? I think Brad just has lethal. Or no, well, so if he animates both factories, he takes one, and then he can use that factory to tap to pump the other, right?
Yep.
So he can't block. But he can take...
Players in the scanner open. Players in the scanner
So
open.
Chris takes two. He activates both, and then he has to wait till Brad attacks. And then he takes one, takes 2 damage.
Once again, scanner open.
So he has the third one to pump. Yeah, that's lethal.
That's lethal.
Yeah, that's lethal. Yep. Yeah, he activates both, and if he takes one, he taps the pump. Yeah, that's game.
Number 6, $10 round number 6.
I mean, assuming Chris doesn't have action in his hand to deal with either of this, but... See what happens. Looks like Brad is going to combat?
I think so.
Am I just missing something? If he activates both factories, doesn't he just win?
He's only attacking with one. No, you're not. I think that he just doesn't see it. Now, the thing that's really key about this is that Chris actually gets to keep that factory.
Right.
So Chris can actually stabilize against both of those factories right now.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he's actually stable right now.
Yeah,
So as long as he doesn't break the standstill.
He just broke the standstill. I feel... Wow.
That was...
I kind of feel like I'm missing something with
No, that was a
Brad's
punt
board
followed by a
position.
punt. Like...
Wait, what just happened?
He scooped when the top was misstepped.
Okay. Okay, so Brad still won.
Yeah, so here's the situation, right? He, by not going for the kill with the 2 factories, what you do is you activate both of the factories and you say that you're going to attack. You force your opponent... You force your opponent... What did you say? You force your opponent to steal one of them or die, and then that one pumps the other and they're dead.
Okay.
So instead he attacks with 1. So then Chris steals it, and then upon stealing it, now he gets to keep it. He untaps, leaves his shackles tapped. Now if Brad attacks with both factories, Brad will knock Chris to 1, but the factory that Chris has will pump itself to save itself, and then it'll be by itself against the other
and then
factory.
Then Brad will have to break his own standstill.
Exactly.
Or,
now, meanwhile, if Brad attacks with only 1 factory, then factories will trade with each other because Brad will pump with the 1 and Chris will pump, and then it's 1 factory versus 1 shackles. And again, Brad has to break his own standstill. So what we basically just saw was a punt with a punt.
Well, if you think you can do better than these guys, and you know, maybe play a little tighter, not necessarily we're bad players or anything, they're both excellent players, but just a small margin of mistakes, you should try and qualify for the Invitational yourself. Here, we run these Invitational qualifiers, and if you win one, you would come to the Invitational. So the next Invitational is in Charlotte at the end of the year, and we held it all around the country. If your store wants one contact, that's when we probably give one to you. Even better, now we have the Super Invitational qualifiers. If you win one of those, you get a playmat, which you see on the screen right now. That's the playmat you get. It's a really awesome playmat. And there's $1,000 for the top 8 competitors. So, you know, I think first place gets 500, and it breaks down from there. So, if you just want to win some money to qualify for the Invitational, can't make it out to an open series, check out the Invitational qualifiers. Go to StarCityGames.com/IQ, and you could qualify for the Invitational. You could be here. We could be talking about your match right now.
Playing for a share of $50,000.
Brainstorm does like, oh.
Pretty insane. Good time. So we're heading into game 2 here, Brad versus Chris.
Now, one of the things to remember, too, is that spectation, when we're spectators, I should say, as a spectator, it's often so much easier to see what is going on because you're not under the stress of trying to figure out the right decision in the same way. You've got nothing on the line. It's easier to be a Monday morning quarterback, to be an armchair general, to be doing it all when you're not actually the one with the pressure on you. So, you know, these guys, they worked to get here, and it's definitely one of those things where when we are watching from afar, we're always going to have the possibility of seeing things that maybe they're not seeing just because of the vantage point.
Right. So, Chaz Hinkle points out that Chris was that he had to play the top there. Because what happens is he's got the sword. So if he activates both factories versus his opponent's factory, gives one of them a sword and attacks, he has to chump block the Mistress factory on the sworded factory, and then takes 2, drops to 1.
That's not true.
Well, he's at 3. He has to block the one with the sword on it.
You're right. You're right. I forgot about the sword in play. Very good point. Very good point.
There you go. But it's still, like, Brad had Chris dead, right?
Yes.
On that attack. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not going crazy. Nobody has refuted that point yet.
Yeah. So yeah, like a perfectly good example, you know, like missing the sword there. Definitely my bad there. We were so much focusing on how the sword wasn't useful because of the shackles that at that level of life, it actually ends up being useful once again in a certain way.
All right. So the players are taking their opening 7s for the second round of this bout. Let's see what they find. Chris on the play of this game with a trademark mono blue deck. Do we know what Chris's record is? Is it X1, XO?
I believe it's X1.
X1.
If you're interested in joining either of those, please come up to the main stage by
Alright, let's see.
5 o'clock again.
Looks like Brad Stryczek's hand is Force, Misstep, Force, some lands, and he's keeping Island for Chris Kronenberger. Tundra for Brad. Let's see some land go games here. Island for Kronenberger again. And Brad just sitting on a bunch of counter magic. Meddling Mage is a nice one.
Saucy little number. Discard.
Oh,
No land.
wow.
What did he keep?
That's a risky keep. I thought he had more lands than that.
Flooded Strand. Now, one of the things to usually think about when you're dealing with the blue-blue matchups, when they're both playing a fairly slow, ponderous game, mana is so key. A low mana hand should probably only be kept if you're either really hoping to get lucky, and sometimes if you think your matchup is bad, hoping to get lucky isn't a bad call. Or if, you know, you're playing against somebody where you think that their deck is so fragile to something that you can just take them out with a single land, even if it's a few turns away. I don't think that this is that situation, though. We get Oblivion Stone from Chris Kronenberger. Brad checking it out to see what it does. Oblivion Stone later on in the game can perhaps go through loops with Academy Runes to destroy even Planeswalkers. Second Tundra from Brad gives him a Meddling Mage, the classic Chris Bakula art. Naming, I think he just asked. Back to basics. Chris draws, casts Vidalcan Shackles. We're going to probably see a fight here. Force of Will pitching something, and Chris says okay. In with Meddling Mage, knocks Chris to 17. Now, Brad might lay the second Meddling Mage, but that does make the Oblivion Stone all the more powerful. Holds back wisely. Vendilion Click during the upkeep. Pulls out a counterspell. Forces that. 2 Force of Wills from Brad. Really trying to put the pressure on before Chris can blow up the world. Chris says, sure. You can see the energy field times 2, a mental misstep, factor fiction, and spell snare. Brad picks him up to get a closer look. Spell snare goes away. Chris draws. Finds a land. Lays it. This will protect him from any damage so long as nothing goes into his graveyard. Brad reads it. It's not a very commonly played card. Brad casts Standstill. In this board position, you know, I don't know that you want to say, I will not play spells either. Chris is happy to not play spells at this point in the game. He's got that disc sitting in... Yeah, well, until he has to discard, says Rashad. But he's got that disc in play, which, in the current board state, he can do an end of the turn. Once he starts worrying about things, end of the turn, activate the stone and blow up the world. He's running low on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ooh, he might have to do the discards. You're getting very close. 7 cards now. Boom. So with that Oblivion Stone blowing up the Standstill, Vendilion Click, and Meddling Mage, Chris now, empty board, lays Sensei's Divining Top. Brainstorm in response from Brad. The top resolves, it looks like.
Pretty good position for Chris.
It's a lot of life. Back to basics.
Back to basics.
That's such a monster of a card. Look at Brad's field too.
Yeah, is that all non-basics?
I think he might have one island in there, maybe.
In the middle.
Oh, he can find an island.
Even then, I mean, just locking him out of other options.
Back to Basics is a decidedly fair, unfair card.
It's pretty ridiculous.
What is the card saying, really? It's saying, hey, play more fair.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like how Blood Moon does, right?
There's a Plains for Brad.
I'm just going to go ahead and search something I want to.
Now, I love cards like Back to Basics. Like, anything that lets you demoralize your opponent is always fun to me.
That's not very much fun for your opponent, though.
Fun for your opponent's overrated. Meddling Mage comes down.
Let's find out what he names.
Now, Brad knows that Chris has another energy field in hand.
Okay.
So Brainstorm played in response.
Alright, ships 2 cards back. And there's
a snare.
What do you think if that resolved? What do you think you would name it for Brad?
That's a hard question. Jace? Maybe?
Jace seems like a reasonable one in there. Alright, now that Tundra is tapped down for good.
Meddling Mage number 3. Spell Snare number some number. 2 or 3. 2 in a row at least. Factor Fiction at the end of the turn. There it is.
Ah, that's a nice little addition. Now, Chris didn't have those before, but Factor Fiction's...
I see a V-Click and a Jace.
So it looks like land, Energy Field, Jace, Medallion Click. Pretty reasonable. Let's see. Now it's a big question for Brad. How do I split this Factor Fiction? A lot of players just aren't used to splitting Factor Fiction.
It's a hard thing to do, honestly.
And so Brad splits it Click, Energy Field versus Island to Island, Jace, and Chris quickly takes the Island to Island Jace. He's like, more lands plus my best card? Yes, please. Snaps it up that Jace quickly.
Yeah, I think it might have been better as Jace land versus the others.
I agree with that.
There's Jace.
Although, I mean, Vanilla Click is also going to do a number on Brad. They're both big threats, but Jace is the bigger threat, you know?
And Chris goes immediately for the incrementing it upwards, burying a card from Brad.
Right.
Now what he's trying to do here is just remove Brad's average card quality, because he's already shutting down so many things from Brad. He doesn't really need as many of the card advantages.
Brad goes for Stoneforge Mystic
Command.
and a Cryptic
Oh,
Command
my
from Chris
goodness.
Kronenberger. Dismiss. And plays 2. There's a Stoneforge Mystic. So Brad had double Mystic. This time Mystic resolves, but Brad is forced to essentially Stone Rain himself twice to do it by tapping a Tundra and a Wasteland under Chris's Back to Basics. So
It's pretty rough. I mean, like,
Brad has 3 lands locked down.
Batterskull, I mean,
On Batterskull.
I mean, if Chris bounces the Mystic, for example, like, the Batterskull is delayed by at least, what, 2 turns? There's double Mishras. He doesn't even need to necessarily bounce anything. He could just, you know, keep doing what he's doing if he wanted for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris is really under not a lot of pressure to let that Batterskull that Brad just searched up. He's got a lot of action. Yep, just gonna go for the Brainstorm and just refill up his hand.
Force of Will,
Crack Splitted Delta.
and I believe a land in his hand.
Man, Jace just going to work. I caught up with Ben Swartz a moment ago, and he is still undefeated in the tournament. He's 6-0.
Cool.
So that's pretty insane for everyone out there wondering how he's doing. Playing a Blue Earth Spitter Twin followed by Dredge. Felt he had some of the best decks in both formats. Chris tops.
I think there's a Brainstorm in that top. Maybe drawing a Brainstorm, I'm thinking. And then maybe immediately Brainstorm to get a little bit deeper and then relay the top. Nope. 2 lands come up for Brad. Upkeep Vendilion Click. This does give Brad the opportunity to activate the Mystic and get the Batterskull into play. Whereas he could have actually cast the Vendilion Click while Brad was tapped out and just gotten rid of the Batterskull.
Well, apparently Chris isn't too concerned about Batterskull.
And was that a click?
I think it's a click, yeah.
And Chris says, keep it.
It's all yours. So Brad's board is now Stoneforge Mystic Batterskull. And Chris has an active Jace, Back to Basics, and a Vendilion Click.
Jace goes bounce on the Germ. With only 2 lands that get to untap, returning the Batterskull to Brad's hand will cost him another land semi-permanently.
Yeah, I don't think Brad has a way to deal with the Back to Basics, so every time he taps non-basic, he's just Stone Raining himself.
Sensei's Dividing Top in
And
play again.
down comes top.
Force of Will in Chris's hand. The top shows another Back to Basics as well as 2 other spells.
Let's see. Plays another island. Chris has plenty of beautiful unhinged islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 islands on the battlefield.
Cards, yeah, 3.
Brad thinking.
Let's see, is that a brainstorm at the front of his hand? That's what it looked like.
Now, a lot of decks in Legacy only have something like, you know, 2 basic lands. They just presume that their duels will work just fine, and they have a couple of basics to make sure that wastelands don't mess them up too much.
Right, just in case. Much
He's
different
like,
story,
oh, look
though.
at this. He's going to just go for it. Attack with the Mishras to kill that Jace.
I mean,
It works.
probably fair trade. 2 lands to deal with a Mind Sculptor.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be huge. But now Brad is down to only 2 lands, and he needs 1 more to start returning that Batter Skull. And alright, so Chris has a grip full of cards. You can see a Force of Will there, a Mental Misstep, and he's slowly plummeting Brad's life total downward with attachment of Vendilion Click.
4 mana, Jace.
Ah, yes, Jace number 2. Say hello to my friend.
He's got a Force of Will in hand.
Yeah, Chris has all the tools right now. He's got an energy
Another
field too.
Jace in hand, it looks like.
Wow.
Goes Brainstorm.
Two-headed giant players. Please report to the side of the stage for your pairings. Two-headed giant players. Please report to the side
Okay,
of the
Brad
stage.
goes for a Brainstorm.
Brainstorm, and let's see, figuring out what he's going to put back. Let's see, so for those of you just joining us, I'm Gavin Verhey with Adrian Sullivan at
Hello.
the Starts the Games Invitational. The board right now is a little cluttered. Chris has a bunch of islands. Stensix Divine on top, Jace, Vendilion Click, and Back to Basics. And Brad's board, he's got a bunch of lands, but all the non-basics have to stay tapped because of that Back to Basics. He's also got a Batter Skull and a Stoneforge Mystic, just sitting on the battlefield.
Now, this fetch land here will give us some proof of whether or not Brad has a second island in his deck. The Echoing Truth is being cast.
Cracks a fetch line in response.
So the question, oh, there it is. There is indeed another island.
Ah, perfect. So now Brad is up to 3 islands. Going to return his Batter Skull and start putting it back with Stoneforge Mystic.
And Mystic taps, puts into play a Sword.
Ooh, a Sword of Body and Mind.
Says go. Fully tapped out. When I see a deck like Chris's, I almost wonder if the deck runs Thwart. I know it doesn't, but I feel like Thwart would be reasonable in it.
Pick up just a 1-of Thwart or something.
Yeah.
Sure.
The click comes in. Brainstorm effect from the Jace. Another island, one of the many. Brad draws. The Mystic that was Echoing Truth back to his hand.
Oh, man.
And he's only at 6 life. He does not have much time to do
Yeah, he's
anything.
got 2
here.
more hits from that click. I mean, he has to rebuy that Batter Skull, but I don't think he has the time to do it. And Chris has all the cards. He's got all the islands.
I mean, Chris is basically running like it's the Philippines there. Look at all those islands.
Sure. Just the Kronenberger Islands over there. Like, could his own island chain. Oh, man. Alright, he equips his sword.
Shutting off yet another land.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
Standard open.
He points to the sword, something happens. You know.
It's pointing to the wasteland. Remember, that one's not going to untap.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Yeah, and he stacks them all up.
The effect from the Sensei's Divining Top, checking things around. Untap, draw the best one.
Plays a Scalding Tarn.
Yeah.
Cracks it immediately. There's all kinds of shuffling and fetch landing and If I were Brad, I would just be, or if I were Chris, I wouldn't even bother. Like I'd just try and close the game out as fast as possible. You're already super far ahead. You just have to attack twice more. You don't want to waste any time right now. Like by
Yeah,
topping
you might
and
not
stuff.
win game 3.
Right, like you just don't have any more time. I would just be like, Fate Seal you, serve for 3.
A little bit more information, perhaps, and finish this game out.
Yeah.
Before.
I mean, he doesn't. Maybe I know he wants to find a Cryptic Command or something. He just doesn't have enough time though.
And
4. Alright, there's a big click. Alright, that's counterspell.
And
Brad packs him in, and now they need to get quickly to the game number 3 because time is running short for Chris Kronenberger and Brad Stryczek. And with Brad on the play, now Brad has a little more ways to have an aggressive draw. Chris, on the other hand, is just a very slow deck, so they're going to have to play quickly and crisply if they want to be able to finish this game in time.
yeah, I mean, I think that they're actually could just very well butt up against the time limit.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see that happen. I mean, they're both slowest decks, and you know you're bound to grab a draw with usually in a long tournament like this, 14 rounds. I mean,
Nothing was going to move in that stage. I mean, I was going to draw some cards, but
I've played against Brad many, many times over the years, and he's always been a really solid player.
is he pretty fast? Do you find?
He can play fast. He can absolutely play fast, and you know, I think that when you play fast, he's not one of those people that can play fast and flawless, but he can play fast and fine.
Yeah, I mean that's usually good enough. Yeah, a lot of players are just like, well, I have to play perfect all the time, and well, that's a very good thing to strive for. Like, don't get me wrong, you want to play perfect as much as you can. When time is on the line and it's a difference between you having a chance to win the match or you drawing.
Yep.
Let me put it this way: 3 points is more than 1 point.
Yep.
So.
And you know the thing, it's funny. When I first met Godenis Vidaguris, I actually thought Godenis was his nickname because he plays so slow. But I thought they'd start calling him Go Dennis. I thought that his name was Dennis, and they called him Go Dennis as like a clever joke. But recently there were some programs out there that would let you analyze your DCI match history percentage, or your match history, and a lot of the Madison guys were amused to discover that Go Dennis had more draws than any of us.
I mean, a lot of players play slow, but I mean, it's just like how, you know, the old, I just said, 3 points more than 1. I just talked to Alex West about this, a little while ago. One of the things he said is, 1 point is more than 0 points. So, now obviously, you don't stall, that's very bad, you don't want to stall. But, you can take your time to think about what's going on. In the meantime, this game is off to the races.
Yeah, we're just starting with the opening of this.
Yeah.
First couple of turns here, as we catch back up, 2 islands versus 2 tundras, and Brad is on the play here. He adds a wasteland to the board. He can easily click here during Chris's draw step. Opportunity for him to do it. Nope, go ahead, says Brad. And a flooded Misty Rainforest comes into play for Chris.
Yep. All right.
End of turn. Here's the Vendilion Click, which summons a Force of Will.
Yeah, pitching a Brainstorm, notably.
Brainstorm with a fetch land in play.
That might be able to give Brad some information about the contents of Chris's hand if he's willing to
pretty good.
Well, or short on blue cards or something.
Well, with Brainstorm fetch land, though, I mean, you can find that blue card, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of surprised.
I'm willing to bet he has got spell snares and missteps.
I know, there's a Brainstorm from Brad Stryczek there.
Yep, resolves.
Alright, no missteps.
I don't think that Chris has a counter spell. I think he would have used counter spell on that click instead of Force of Will. Brad saying go, it looks like, with no 4th land drop. And Chris casts Brainstorm number 2. Chris is removed from game area, and his graveyard are about the exact opposite configuration that I use. After the Brainstorm, on Chris's main phase, he lays an island.
Right.
This is the turn afterwards.
All islands all the time.
Starts trying to rebuild like he had that second game, a massive amount of islands. 4 is more than 3. Brad played this game, so here we go. Jace.
There's a Mind Sculptor.
Force of Will would be something Brad would like to see right now.
Daze.
Daze is a pretty good one.
Pays 2 is hard cast Daze.
Force of Will, tossing a misstep.
Chris is he's forced to force the Daze.
I predict we're going to see a Brainstorm effect here from Chris. He activates the 0 ability, casting a Brainstorm with Jace.
Jace just knows all the best spells to cast.
Brainstorm, Unsummon, and Secret Spell of Jace's.
I mean, he's got to have some secrets. I mean, he's part of the consortium.
Yeah.
Those guys are sneaky. Alright, let's see. 2 mana Stoneforge Mystic. Yep, down comes Mystic for Brad.
This is a very important play here for Brad.
He's going to get Batterskull or Sword?
I think he's going to get Batterskull.
I think he's going to Sword.
Oh! I've got a top in my hand. A little bit of aggressive shuffling from Chris.
Yep, and so Brad does get the Sword.
What's that?
I like getting the Sword here. I think the protection from blue against that Jace is really important.
It's absolutely fair.
Yeah, both players know their Sword on time. Chris just doesn't even bother to cut.
Oh, back to basics. Ouch.
Yeah, that's rough.
I think they're going to get a draw here. Brainstorm from Brad. In response, perhaps?
Let's see.
Wow.
Stoneforge Wasteland.
I don't think I see any Force of Will.
I don't think I see a Force of Will
I don't think
either.
I see Double Days.
And
it
it
resolves, turning off all of Brad's land. Bounces the Stoneforge Mystic, follows up with the top.
Armageddon you.
Oh,
and now it's just a matter
boy.
of closing in time. And Chris and Brad are going to have to play super fast.
Go ahead.
And I think Chris is going to go for Jace Ultimate,
Yeah,
right?
he should just Jace Ultimate right now.
Yeah, just don't even think about it. Island, Fate Seal you.
Anything, is it non-bait? Okay, that's fine, go.
Yeah, you just can't take any extra time. Every second counts right now. Alright, for Brad, if you're Brad.
Player, this is a final call.
Alright, discards
Jace.
Oh.
End of the turn, Vendilion Click.
A final call for assignments for Legacy Challenge. In addition, we only have 2 spots remaining in standard.
Look at me, he says.
Oh man, that click spends so much time.
Then he goes top.
I guess he just targeted himself to save time.
Yep. Attack.
Alright, attack for 3.
Activate your Jace, don't forget. Shackles, activate your Jace.
Fate Seal.
Looks not good, bottom it is. Brad can untap, wants to.
Really wants to.
Oblivion Ring in his hand, Jace in his hand. I think that's a repeal in his hand. Discards. Stoneforge Mystics, let's go.
Alright, Chris.
Chris untaps. Attacks for 3.
If you're gonna win this, you
Activates
gotta,
the Jace.
as fast as possible.
Okay,
You can move the
that's
dice on
good.
this turn.
And go. Very good.
Alright, and here we go. This is the play I like to see. Chris just move as fast as possible. He's not gonna be able to finish in time.
Current turn, and then there are 5 additional turns.
And because the thing is, even after you ultimate Jace, the whole hand goes back in, so you get 7
Yep.
more turns. Even though the game is over. Now, if Brad feels like it, he could concede to Chris. But at this early in the tournament, a draw is perfectly fine to take. He's under no obligation to.
I don't see not only any obligation to, but
Yeah, I was going to the,
I don't see that Chris actually owned the win here, honestly.
okay.
I mean, really?
Well, like, Chris, because of the way he played Game 2, I think he could have closed Game 3 in time if he had played Game 2 differently. And as a result of that, I would not feel obligated, if I were that person, to say, well, you really got me. I would say, no, you took too much time. You took too much time in Game 2 when you shouldn't have.
That's possible. I mean, like I said, there's still 7 more turns Brad would have to go through. But, yeah. I mean, Chris could have played a little faster at the end there. It's hard to know what would have happened.
Brad
They're on turn 1.
To the invitational stage, please. Brad Shepherd, please report to the invitational stage.
Fate Seals again, now there's back to the normal pace. We'll see what happens here. So they're on turn 1 right now. 2,
Let's
3,
go.
4. So on Chris's 5th turn, on the 5th turn, he can ultimate Jace. Alright, well he's going to top now. But I mean, at this point, it's really all just semantics.
Yeah. He can't, unless,
I mean, neither player's going to win.
yeah, and unless he, like, you know, suddenly puts into play some sort of card that doesn't exist in his deck that adds a lot of damage.
Show and tell Emmerich will go.
this end of turn or is this up game? This is not over turn. Okay, well, yeah.
In an ultimate window, Chris obviously wins this game and this match. But the thing is we live in a world where there's time limits, and I think Chris's play in the second game
it's okay. I'm just saying, I said instep. Okay.
Was overly ponderous.
I guess I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was just a little bit toward the end where he just scratched a couple fetch lines he didn't need to, just took some extra time, and maybe about 2 minutes. Once again, I don't know if 2 minutes would have been enough. Brad still has to go through all 7 cards of his deck.
At the pace they were playing, it would have been enough.
But it probably would have been enough.
They were both, you'll notice, Brad was playing quickly.
Right, he wasn't slowing down.
Even though it meant that Chris was getting closer to killing him.
Right, and that's a very gentlemanly thing to do, because Brad was under no obligation to play, that fast. He could still take it's 30 seconds on his turn if he wanted to.
I mean, Chris is not running out of time here because Brad is playing.
Standard winner box number 2.
Brad was going snap, 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 snap.
Right. Stage, we'll get you started. Standard winner box number 2.
Alright, I don't know. Easy. Search for 3.
Brad draws. Perhaps discards again.
And this is going to be turn 5, right? Or this is turn 5.
Turn 5.
Tax Brad down to 5 life. Yeah, he would have definitely had time to finish the game. 2 more hits from that V-click. Alright, it's a draw.
There we are.
There we are, yeah. Chris just needed 2 more turns with that V-click. And didn't quite get there in time. So that's it. A kind of anticlimactic end of that match.